you say to a person that believes in another religion than Christianity and says that the New Testament is not in fact reliable?
I'd say the New Testament is supported by evidence that it is reliable. What is that evidence? If you're going to raise the question of historical reliability, I think that's good. But you better think, and you better come up with some tests that you use to determine historical reliability on any document. For myself, I've come up with 4 tests. Nothing magical about them, but I use them on the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, European history, African history books, US history books. So I use them consistently. The 4 tests to determine historicity are literary style. Is it once upon a time in the land of Nod, Wynken, Blynken, and Odd took a boat ride? Is that history? Is that historical narrative? No. That is called fairy tale. All right? Are the Gospels once upon a time in the land of Nod? Jesus took a boat ride? No. The Gospels are at this time, in this place, with these people around to witness this event, this occurred. It reads like the New York Times, the LA Times. It's historical narrative. That is the literary style. Second test, archaeology. Are we talking about the island of Atlantis that Jesus ran around on? No. We're talking about Bethlehem, Nazareth, Jerusalem, Rome. Archaeologically verifiable places. Third test, internal consistency. Are these eyewitnesses contradicting each other? If they are, we got a problem with the text. I sure do. When you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, there are no contradictions. Are there different perspectives? Yes. Is there one angel in an empty tomb versus 2 angels in an empty tomb in a different gospel? Yes, there are. But the gospel that records that there is one angel never says there was only one angel. It's a different perspective, which is totally valid. We want different perspectives on any history. Fourthly, and most importantly for me personally, is how do we know that we have what those eyewitnesses wrote? Today, the New Testament that we have in English is based on over 5,700 Greek manuscripts or pieces of manuscripts dated from the 2nd through the 10th century AD, all agreeing to an infinitesimal degree. Does that mean the Bible's a word of God? No, absolutely not. Does that mean that the Gospels are historically reliable? Yes, absolutely yes. Well, come on, Cliff, show me that the Bible's a word of God. I can't. It's impossible to show that any book is the word of God. How do you do that? It's impossible. But can I show you that the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are historically reliable? Yes, sir. If you're a skeptic, fine. But at least be open-minded and read the Gospel simply as history and ask yourself, does the historical evidence point to Jesus being a fraud? If it does, reject him. But if the Gospels point to the sanity, the reliability, the credibility of Jesus Christ, you better put your faith in him, because what he claims is far too extreme for you to ignore him.
So I have some friends where we talk about like how they believe that women shouldn't be preachers or women shouldn't be able to talk about God.
Yep.
And how it talks about that in the Bible, or maybe not that specifically.
Right.
And then other friends who are just like, why would someone say that? Like, why would someone want to like put women behind men? So I just want to hear like your thoughts on that and
you bet.
What you think.
Well, Phoebe was trained by Paul, right? She was tremendously close. Paul raised her up as a leader who was preaching to men. Then you have an ancient manuscript where one Roman emperor wrote to another talking about how we have been persecuting and we have been slashing and doing things probably similar to waterboarding to this disciple of Christ who was a woman. And disciple referencing her as a leader. So, women in leadership? Absolutely. Now, to the point of, were they specifically pastors? Well, the word pastor is not in the Bible. People don't believe me when I say that. Look up and try and find the word pastor in the Bible. It's not. We're both pastors, so sometimes we wonder what in the world are we doing being pastors. It's not in the Bible. Now, women, though, in that Roman Empire, they were considered dirt. So were children. The typical male in the Roman Empire was allowed to have one sex slave, one wife, as well as another mistress and treat them however he wanted to. No woman can go and say, hey, I'm part of the Me Too movement, for example. It was Christians that came along and said, no, we have to find a way to do away with this. We have to find a way to uplift women and say all are created in the image of God. That's when the Roman Empire started to change. And the majority of the early church and the church today is by far and away female.
That's a great issue you're raising. Why? Because I meet a lot of women today who say, I am really angry about the sexism in our culture. And I look those ladies in the face and I say, I'm right with you. For a man to look down on a woman as inferior is sick. But the question is, why is woman valuable? And here's the answer that I get from too many of my feminist friends. Woman is valuable because she's just like a man. That's a pathetic reason that woman is valuable. I hope, ladies, you don't think you're valuable because you're just like men. Because now you're still begging the question, why are men and women valuable? And I can promise you a woman is not valuable because she's just like a guy. No, false. The Bible gives us the basis for the value of every man, every woman, every transgender, every LGBTQ, every racist, every ethnic heritage person in the world. And the basis is God created every single one of us in his image. What do you think that man stood for? Exactly what I just said. Dr. Martin Luther King understood all human beings are created in the image of God. That is why racism is wrong. Because racism is saying, I'm inferior, I'm superior, and you are inferior. And that is a lie. That is arrogance. It's demeaning a person. God created every single human being in his likeness, in his image, which means we all have equal value and dignity. You take God out of the picture, and I'll tell you why woman's valuable. Because our culture says, if your body's proportioned correctly, you're a babe. You're valuable. What a crock. Our culture says, man, if you've been in the weight room a lot and you're buff, you're a stud. You're somebody significant. That's a lie. Our culture says, if you got a 4.0 GPA, whoa, you're somebody. That's a lie. I've got a sister who's mentally challenged. I got a brother who transplants kidneys at Duke University Hospital in North Carolina. I can promise you, my brother, who's a transplant surgeon, is not more valuable than my sister, who's at a third grade educational level at the age of 59. And if anybody goes to my brother and says, whoa, you know, you're really valuable, and your sister, who's mentally challenged, is a loser, my brother intellectually will bust the dude's chops. Why? Because you got to think. Why are any of us valuable? If there is no God, none of us are valuable innately. We just give ourselves value, or our culture gives us value if we happen to be a winner instead of a loser. Guys, think. You've got to think this stuff through. No God, you're an accident, I'm an accident. If there is a God who created you in his image, you and I both have intrinsic, innate value. It's that simple.